So talking about underdogs, we have World Test Championship in coming month. So who do you think is underdogs there?
No, this is you can't call two finalists like this is not a story of the underdog. I think both.
Okay, so I will say. So hello everyone and welcome back to fourth episode of our new series Cricket Careers. In today's world, cricket is not just limited or bounded to 22 yards, but we have several elements surrounding cricket which makes it more interesting and entertaining for the viewers. Let's say we have a dish which is well decorated and garnished, it becomes fascinating for audience or customers to eat it. So same should be the case in cricket, right? What do you think, Rohan?
Yeah, pretty much correct analogy. Like
Yeah,
cricket in its pure form, it is delicious, right?
yeah.
And if it's not presented in a way that you said, people won't consume it that much. So people working behind the camera and in front of camera, they make it possible for us to understand the cricket game in depth, and not just in terms of entertainment, but knowledge as well. I personally gained my knowledge from by watching all these shows and post match, pre-match analysis, all these shows. So yeah, in a way, they make the game a pure entertainment package.
Yeah, correctly said by you. So there are people constantly working behind the screen to make cricket a complete package of entertainment for the viewers.
Hmm.
Like if we have some statistics, facts, and some inside stories of dressing room, it becomes fascinating for the viewers. So today we have someone with us who has immense experience and worked in diverse roles. So today's guest, Miss Rupa Ramani, has worked as a sports journalist for around 14 years, and she has worked with CNN, IBN, and then moved on to work with Star Sports, where she got opportunity to cover and produce World Cups, then Champions Trophies, and many IPL editions. Then
Hmm.
she has also traveled with CSK team and created content for that over the years. And then she finally went on to co-launch Star Sports Tamil channel. She also has her own YouTube channel, Rally with Rupa Ramani. So it's
Hmm.
like one woman doing many roles. So it will be a very interesting to have insight from a personality who has worked in diverse role around the cricket. So currently she is working as a freelancer, sports producer, writer, and presenter. So let's welcome today's guest, Miss Rupa Ramani.
Hi, Sumit and Rohan. Thank you so much for that introduction. Quite happy to be here too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome, ma'am. Thank you for giving us the time
Yes,
from
ma'am.
your busy schedule. Yeah.
I'm sure everyone is free enough now to have a few conversations. So always pleasure to have such conversations.
So, ma'am, to start with, for like Sumit just mentioned, all the designations of yours.
Hmm.
For layman or for common people, it's not really there's no clarity in terms of roles. Like I, as a kid, started watching cricket, and for me, only designation that I knew was commentary, cricket commentators. But now that I've grown up and now that I have a channel, I've started to understand the other roles as well. But for other people, it's not really clear. So could you just in brief explain what is the difference between a presenter, broadcaster, and of course a producer?
Well, like they say, there's a saying that goes that it takes a village to raise a child, and it's pretty much probably applicable to a sport like cricket. It takes a lot of people to bring out and present the sport the way you are consuming it in your homes, or watching it on television sets or on digital platforms. So there are a lot of people who are involved in making that possible and making that a beautifully packaged and very easily consumed product. So it's not just a presenter or a commentator or a producer. I think there are so many others also. Of course, the primary role, the faces that you see are the people through whom you're viewing that particular sport. So it's the commentators who are speaking to you. They are the medium that connects what's happening on the match action, so to say. The anchor and kind of stitches the whole discussions through. And of course, you have a panel and the entire production control room that kind of macro manages all of that's happening on the TV screens that you're viewing. So whether it's a director or a commentary producer or a panel producer, audio, visual, technicians, camera persons, I think it's more than 100 people who work on making this possible. So if I have to briefly tell you what the different roles or the key roles are, a director of the match is probably one of the most important roles. We tend to kind of oversee that or overlook that many a time when we're viewing it, because we're really not aware of what's happening. So the director is the one who kind of calls the shots. He decides when to come and rig the entire stadium with your technical output before it all starts. There's a fact check, of course, the previous day before the match happens. And all the output that you're seeing on during a match, which angles are being cut, what shot you're seeing, what replays you're seeing, is all a director's call. The commentators also are being monitored by a commentator producer. So a lot of the discussions that are happening, of course, happens on free will, and they guide the a lot of it is what they think themselves. But a lot of the times, when to talk, when to not talk, when to say the score, or when to throw to what, or introduce what package or what highlights, is kind of monitored by a commentary producer. So a lot of it is in a sense directed. There are a team who kind of micromanage and call the shots when it comes to what the commentators are saying when. But of course, the analysis is comes from the commentators themselves. But there's a producer, in fact, who decides. Let's say you see those shows that Rohan was talking about, a pre-show or a post-show. A lot of times, the producer, in previous occasions, it was me, who would decide what has to be discussed, what package to talk about, or what player to talk about, which moment in the match was probably the most interesting. And those kind of things is what the producer kind of takes a call on and makes a rundown, which is then kind of discussed with the anchor and the commentators and the experts on the show. And he or she on the panel is who decides how the show flows from there. So there are a lot of people in charge of all of that happens. And of course, I don't want to kind of get into too many details, but you kind of understand that it's not just like you're saying, it's a lot of people who kind
the entire team.
Yeah. Like it's not a one person, it's all interconnected, and this group of people then make it a complete package for the viewers.
That's right.
Okay, so as you have worked on so many roles, and obviously when you have some regional language to talk with your people, it connects personally, and you can connect with people from your region. So what was the idea behind starting the Star Sports Tamil channel?
Yeah, it's a nice question, Sumit. I think the first hint of something that we thought that this could work is, I think, back in 2015-16, I think, when South Africa toured Bangladesh, and it was a series. It was a very small, short series that Star Sports was supposed to produce. I think it was 2016. And we decided to do a Hindi production for the first time. Let's do Hindi. We've always done English, but let's do this in Hindi. And they let that series. So a lot of experimentation was done. A lot of the rule book in terms of the do's and don'ts when it comes to a sports broadcast in English was kind of thrown out of the window. And we did a lot of different things when it came to Hindi broadcast. Of course, I was not part of that. I was still part of the English broadcast, but I saw my colleagues working on that, and it really worked. A lot of people who really don't understand English were able to connect to that and were able to watch a sport that they all loved, so they could understand it better. So I think after that, we all started thinking that, hey, this could be something that could work in different languages. So of course, Tamil was the one major channel that everyone was very keen on, because I guess that's a lot to do with the success of a team like Chennai Super Kings, the kind of fan base that a Chennai fan has, the kind of knowledge that we talk about a South Indian or a Tamil Nadu cricket fan that we talk about a lot of how they're very knowledgeable and they're very emotionally connected to that sport. So I think that was a huge driving force for us to think about doing something like this in Tamil. So I remember many months before the launch, which we kind of timed the launch with the Champions Trophy that happened in 2017. So many months before that, I traveled through to many districts in Tamil Nadu with a team, and we did a lot of surveys with a lot of cross-section of the society, which is like kids, women, children, working women, household people who are homemakers, to kind of gauge what they would like if something like this happened, and what they liked about cricket production, what they didn't like, or what they would like to see. And we kind of collated all of that information. I remember making a sort of a presentation of that, and we based quite a few of our the way we kind of launched it and what we would do. We based it a lot on what the viewers were telling us, what people whom we were going to target were telling us. And of course, along the way, it was a lot of learning process, and it was enjoyable. It was fun. but yes, it kind of again gave us that room to do a lot, experiment a lot, which we normally couldn't do on an English broadcast, because a lot of that
Yeah.
is connected to a BCCI guideline or an ICC guideline when it comes to
Oh.
multi-event, multi-team sports.
Mhm.
So I guess doing something like that in a regional channel was far more enjoyable, and was
Enjoy.
quite a fun experience. And that became a sort of a template for many other regional channels to come up. You know, we had Kannada after that, we had Telugu after that, Malayalam as well, that kind of has been doing pretty well too. So I think a lot of it kind of came out of the Tamil network that was launched in 2000.
I felt
Okay.
that the idea was really great. I think Star Sports was the first channel to do that, right? To bring all the
I think
regional.
Sony and Star in the past have kind of dabbled with regional
Okay.
broadcasts, because I remember the 2015 World Cup was done in several languages. So it's not that, it's not a very alien concept, but yes,
Hmm.
Star Sports Tamil was the first sports regional channel that was launched in India, and that's something that I'm extremely proud of. And I think that's just gone from strength to strength now, and now it's just sort of so much more seamless now when you look at it, the production and what all they've kind of been doing. Of course, it's kind of gotten into a bit of a routine, and it's found its feet in some sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a concept that wasn't alien. A lot of people were kind of experimenting with it, but I guess they didn't think that this was something that was possible. I remember when we launched, it was just three of us. It was just three or four of us. It was a very small crew who was doing a lot of the work. So I guess credit goes to everybody who was with me. You know, whether it was Sandy, Sriram, Shankar, Sesha. I mean, these were the guys. We were the core of the initial think tank, and doing all of it together. So it was fun. It was fun to be a part of a journey like that.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of fans of yours, they are asking on channels that they are expecting Tamil content from you nowadays. I've read some of your comments, and they are expecting, ma'am, we want interview in Tamil. So yeah, so in a way now you have a benchmark that I can deliver a content in Tamil as well, and
No,
people do.
It's difficult. It's difficult though, because I guess we all we've grown up thinking in a particular language. Even though I am from South, I am a Tamilian, but we've just been so programmed to think in English. At least I have.
Correct.
Of course, I know how to read Tamil. I know how to speak Tamil, of course. But I guess the most natural language that I kind of get inclined towards is English. So, but yes, it's always, but it's good. It's always good to reach out to the Tamil fan and to because it's a huge, it's a different market in itself, and I think they provide you with something else, or at least the kind of engagement or interaction that you have is unlike what you get with an English.
Yeah, correct.
That's for sure.
In fact, when we were researching, we saw one of your Tamil podcast. Then we were eager to know what it exactly means. So one of Rohan's friend translated it for us.
Yeah.
It was in Tamil. Then she translated for us.
Oh, okay.
You could understand the English bit, but I still wanted for that what questions were asked also. So I had to ask my friend, and she told me that not a lot was covered in it, but yeah. So you mentioned that there were some technical difficulties at the start when you started with the channel. There was some technical difficulties with the crew. The crew was in Mumbai, and initially you weren't doing it at the venue. So could you share what was that? The technical issue.
So I think that was an issue for a lot of the broadcasts, not just Tamil. I mean, I guess with a couple of years back, I think they started sending the Tamil team at least to certain venues, definitely to Chennai when Chennai hosted a match, whether it was IPL or whether it was national cricket. But initially, of course, we did everything out of Bombay. So we had our studios in Bombay, we had our production control rooms, of course, in Bombay. But that was a bit of an issue with the English team. While working on the English broadcast, also we had a bit of other technical kind of not difficulties, but some things that we had to manage. We had a smaller crew which made up the commentators and the anchors who were at the venue, and I had to produce them from Bombay at my production room. Earlier, we used to travel a lot. I remember, I think till 2017, we traveled for every bilateral or every World Cup. So I have been at the venues for all of it. And it was
Oh.
easier, of course, to manage when you're at the venue with your commentators and you're there. So we had these vans where we would set up our production room, which were in vans in certain places and in smaller rooms in certain cities across India. It's interesting also to note how production works across different countries. I think that was also another thing that I kind of learned along the way. But in Tamil, it was more difficult because it was all a very smaller production, is what we had to start with. Before, I think they started then sending a team of your panelists and all of that to the venue so that they could have commentary stints from there. We still could produce them from Bombay, but again, that becomes a bit of an issue to work around, and you'll have to. There are so many other issues when that happens because sometimes the line gets dropped, you're not able to hear them. You'll have to find a way to communicate with them. So it kind of made us think a lot on our feet, and I guess that's what a lot of production involves. You need to be constantly on your toes, thinking what can possibly go wrong, and find out a way to sort it without kind of hampering your production in any way or getting disturbed or getting hyper without finding a solution. So that's something that I guess was not just an issue with Tamil, but was an issue while working with English and Hindi as well. I produced Hindi as well. So it was pretty much an issue with any language. I think we've had a lot of technical issues, but more so with Tamil because it was at a very young stage when I kind of started it.
Yeah. Because we also understand what these technical issues are, as we are also started this channel.
Yes.
So as I'm an IT engineer, so what happens in our field, once you enter your field, you are like you are given one designation, but then as you grow, then you go to other designation, and then it's a linear growth. But as we have saw your trajectory from sports journalist to writer, then whatever sports producer. So what exactly has been that change? Is it an expected career path, or you had done something different from others?
No, it's not an expected career path. I wouldn't say that. I think a lot of people, if I look back now at the time when I was a journalist, I remember right now from my batch, which is, so I studied journalism at the Asian College of Journalism in Chennai. And if I look back at my team of 30 of us who were in broadcast, we were lucky enough. I mean, we wanted to do broadcast. We were lucky to get that stream that we wanted. A lot of people couldn't and had to kind of make do with print. Print had, I think, about 70 to 80 of people. And there was another, digital was the third stream, which had about 40 to 50 people. And there were only 30 in broadcast, which is 30 of us. And if you ask me, out of those 30, how many are still involved with television right now? I can count them in probably one finger. A lot of people, I think, got jaded with, a lot of people didn't quite like what was out there. I think a lot of people got jaded. A lot of people switched and went to print. A lot of people decided to give up journalism completely. A lot of people took to something else, maybe, film production, things like that. So I guess it's very, out of that batch itself, there were very few of us who continued the path of television journalism. And again, there were just two of us who were into sports. And I think the other person right now who was along with me, who was most interested in sports, she's involved with the IPL with one of the teams. So everyone has a very different path. A lot of people just stuck to journalism. I think I should be very, very happy with the changes that I've had in my profession. I think you're right. It's not a trajectory that is usual. I have gone from being a journalist to getting into cricket production, to freelancing, to writing, to doing radio. It's a very varied path that I have taken. If you ask me now how that happened, I won't be able to tell you, because a lot of it depends on what you think at that point, or do you think that you want to, probably there's a passion in you towards a particular aspect of what you're doing. But I guess that's what's important. I think a lot of people lose sight of their career paths, or trying to mold their career paths because they're probably not doing what they're enjoying. I guess a lot of it probably is what I would put it down to. I think the reason why I was able to choose a lot of the different roles along the way was possibly because I loved what I was doing, and I constantly wanted something to challenge, keep myself challenged,
Yeah.
and to challenge myself constantly. I guess that's what is probably, and you can chart, and anyone's path should be different. There shouldn't be
Correct.
something. There is no tried and tested way of doing anything. I guess once you enjoy what you're doing, you will find more ways to challenge yourself constantly.
Especially
Yeah.
right now, you need to be open in all regards. Like you cannot have a rigid mindset with your career path. It applies to all the fields. In fact, it's not just
Yeah.
journalism. I think it applies to all the fields that you have to be open. And yeah, you said rightly that you have to be aware. And I guess you were always on your toes to just do whatever role that you get because you enjoy doing it. I guess that was the thing, right?
Yeah,
That
and
you
also
enjoy.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is, like you were saying, be aware. Earlier, I remember like my parents, especially my mother, telling me, you can't be a jack of all trades because you're going to end up being a master of none. I guess now it's
Yeah.
important to be a jack of all trades. You probably,
Correct.
now it's
Correct.
the time where you need to know a lot of things. The more things you know, or the more aspects you're aware of, you never know what you're going to like and which
Mhm.
area it might just pull you towards it, and you
Yeah.
might just find your calling. It needn't be a producer. It could be a flow manager. I know there's this guy who I know, we call him PD. He has a very long name. We all call him PD, and he's very, very well known. All the cricketers in the world know him, not
Oh.
just Indians. It's every cricketer in every team knows him really well because he's done so many matches. He's the flow manager. And I'm sure that's his calling. He's great at communicating with people. He's like this wiry, thin, short, wispy-looking guy, but he gets his job done, and he's a joy to talk to. He knows his sport. He's been there for years, and people trust him, and everyone likes him. Everyone keeps talking about him because he loves his work. And it's just that, right? You like what you're doing and you find your calling, and then maybe that's something else. Maybe if you're not happy with that and you still want something else, and then you look for something else, and then you go there. I guess that's what happened with me. But for a lot of people, who are there for years on end with just one particular role, which is great too. Maybe that's actually what they've always wanted to do, and they continue on that path. So I guess it's all different. Depends on the kind of person you are. I just give an example of this. There's another example of this guy. He's a very, very good friend of mine. He's right now an EVS operator. Again, I won't go into technical details. So an EVS machine is what provides you with all the highlights packages or the replays that you keep seeing.
Yeah.
Those short packages of replays, a particular angle, and all of that. An EVS operator who gets all the output, he's what provides those little packages at the end of the match or during the interval or during an innings break or whatever. So he about 10, 15 years ago, the only thing he used to do was give tea to the editors and help them put a tape into the machine so that they could edit. He learned editing like that. He's probably one of the best editors I've ever worked with. He went on to be a great editor. We used to take him on all travel. We used to take him with us to travel because we wanted to edit right there at the venues. We didn't want to be a delay in production, send the footage to Bombay, get it edited, come back. So we took him with us. He used to edit on location with us. He then sat next to an EVS operator and started learning EVS machine, how to operate, function that. And he's an EVS operator now. And he travels to all venues doing that. And I think that's an incredible story. I guess every aspect of cricket production has an amazing story, and every aspect can bring out the best in you. Depends on what you like doing and how you find your own calling. I think, again, it's because he was passionate about that. He liked that. He wanted to know how he could do it himself, and he did it. So I guess that's what it is at the end of the day. It's not, it doesn't work the same way for everybody, and everyone should have their own path to follow.
Yeah, correct.
It was curiosity that led to all this for him. Right?
Yeah.
And also, you should be open to try out new things, and whenever opportunity arises, you should grab that.
Absolutely. You never know what you might enjoy liking.
But as you were in journalism and then writing, but how did you exactly came into cricket? Like, were you connected with the cricket from childhood or within the family?
Yeah. My dad was played cricket, and as kids, we used to. But as kids, it was not just about cricket. As kids, I think we watched every sport that came on television. He used to make us sit and watch sports with me. I started playing tennis because I used to love watching tennis. So we loved tennis, we loved hockey, we used to love watching Olympic sports, cricket, of course. So a lot of it was just watching a lot of sports at home, and you get involved with that. So obviously, I think it was all just so organic. I used to love watching sports. I of course played sports. I used to love writing. I used to love talking, communicating. I think that was my kind of personality. And my parents also kind of, the great thing about them was they didn't think that I should end up doing engineering or doctor or the professions that we've all kind of, as we were growing up during those days, the kind of set professions that all of us were in.
Stereotype, yeah.
The good thing is they let me discover whatever I like doing. So you like to read.
That's
you
important.
like to read. So
Correct.
the newspapers, whenever newspapers come, I would fight with my parents and take it, and I would start reading it like I was an anchor. So, okay, you want to do that? Then great. Why don't you start looking at journalism school? So why don't you start doing that? I was a kid that time, but they said, why don't you start writing? So I used to write poems. I used to write articles. I used to start doing all of that. And I guess sports and, writing and all of that kind of just married, and things just happened. So I guess the more you're involved in something, and which is the one thing my dad used to say, and that kind of stuck with me, if you want to be something, you need to just keep thinking about it constantly. You need to eat it. You need to sleep it. You need to breathe it. There's no way that you can do what you want to do if you just think about it for like that 1 hour in a day. You got to be thinking about it 24 hours in a day. And that's the only way you can work towards what you want to do. And it doesn't have to be becoming the prime minister of the country, for example. It could be just being the best watchman of a building, whatever. I mean, it could be anything. Just you need to keep
what
thinking.
You're passionate about.
Yeah. And I guess the fact that sports was constantly drilled into us, and we started loving it. If we never loved it, we wouldn't watch it. We wouldn't continue watching it. We wouldn't you would know. A lot of people don't like sports, and even if you keep telling them to watch, after a point they'll be like, no, I'm not going to see more of it. But there was something, and I guess there was something in it that I loved, which is why I started playing sports also. I started watching more. I started writing about it. I started talking about it. So I guess a lot of it was a lot of it was already there. Like my inclination towards that was there, and I think my dad kind of helped me in get there in some way. I guess that's how it worked for me, and I'm sure everyone else's journey starts differently, but that's how it was for me.
Like you mentioned that you played sports, so I guess you started playing tennis as well. Yeah, you used to play tennis, and so did you play cricket professionally somewhere in your school?
Yeah, I did actually for my college. I was the wicket keeper for my college, because nobody wants to keep wickets. Everyone wants to be a batsman. Very few people want to be a bowler, and they didn't have a wicket keeper, and they were like, we don't have a wicket keeper. And I used to play almost every sport. Like tennis was my first sport, but I would go, okay, they had one person lesson volleyball. Yeah, I'll go play volleyball. I used to play basketball. Basketball, I kind of played very seriously, actually. Basketball was from school. Of course, with the height, you tend to kind of, the sports teacher wanted me to be a part of his team because I was really tall, very few tall women. But so that I was playing. And of course, I loved athletics. So I used to run a lot. So I used to love playing every sport. And so obviously in college, everybody knows, okay, she's going to play any sport. So they said, okay, will you keep wickets? I'm like, yeah, sure. Go keep wickets. So we played, I played a university tournament, and we ended up runners up. I think we lost the final. But yeah, I did that as well. So it was fun. I think that once you enjoyed it, you would love to be a part of every aspect of that particular, you want to be around sports all the time. So I guess, yeah.
It's similar to MS Dhoni's story, right? Even he was made wicketkeeper.
Dhoni is somewhere else. I am still grounded.
Yeah, that comparison is too big to make.
Any comparison is too big to make, but yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. But as you mentioned, Rohan, about MS Dhoni, I would like to come on that point that very few lucky people get to meet him personally. And as you have been traveling with CSK over the years, so how was your first interaction with one of the smartest brain in cricket? MS Dhoni.
I met him before I started traveling with CSK, actually. I met him when I was doing, while I was covering cricket I think no. The first time I met him was, I think, for Star Sports when I started working for Star Sports, because in cricket also there's news channels don't have that much of access with cricketers, of course. As a reporter, I did interview. I did do a lot of interviews during earlier days when he was still younger. During the IPL, I remember in South Africa we did quite a few things, quite a few shoots. But I think if you ask me when I really got to know him well was, of course, while traveling for CSK.
Yes.
Okay.
He's super fun. He's always going to, if he likes you, if he knows, first of all, he's going to like people who are very hardworking, who know what they're doing, and who are extremely hardworking and diligent. He's always, I see him always talking to some people who are like really hardworking and very dedicated, and he always has time for all of them. And if he likes you, he's always going to come and talk to you, always. So I remember every time I used to shoot something, or I would do something, or I'll be working, he'd come and he'll say something, he'll pull my leg, he'll constantly, he always would pull my leg, always would tease me. That was the rapport we shared. I always would make fun of me. All of that it was very candid. And of course, sometimes you would have a few conversations about cricket, but I've noticed one thing, not just with MS, but with a lot of cricketers. I think once the match is over, very few people like talking about the match or the sport. They want to take their mind off it. So that's why a lot of the discussions is about life. It's about things outside cricket. What do you like doing? What do you don't like doing? Hobbies and food and travel, and a lot of the discussions become about that. So that way, I really got to know him very well over the years that I spent with CSK. He's a lot of fun to talk to. You can never get tired of conversations. He loves playing TT when he's not. He'd not just want to just sit around. You'd want to play something while he's chilling. So we played a lot of TT together. So it was fun. I think he's an amazing person who can completely take his mind off the game outside of that ground. Once he's away, he's like on another zone. He's always chilled out. He's very calm even while he's playing, but he's just so much more. The kind of control over his emotions that I have seen is just unbelievable. I don't think anyone else can be like that, have that much of control over himself or herself as a personality, because he knows that there are people who are constantly looking at him. People are constantly wanting to spend time with him, talk to him, get to know him, pick his brains. And he's just so easy. And he's just maintains that kind of calmness and that aura about him, which is very difficult, but he does it. And he's done it for so long, for so many years, on and on. So, yep, I guess it's one. He's not your regular sports star, he's someone special, and that's evident when you speak to him. I think that comes out across. That came out in one of the very few, the first few meetings itself that I had with him, or the first few interactions that I had with him. He's a special person. He doesn't come, a cricketer or a personality like him will not come about all too often. It's like once in a lifetime person. And I think I was very privileged and very honored to have
absolutely
met him, interacted with him, and kind of gotten to know him, and someone who he remembers too. I think that's something that I'm quite honored to have had the occasion to be around.
That was actually nicely put in words. That is the most I've heard about MS Dhoni, not just on the field but off the field. How is he as a personality? So that was nicely put. And coming to cricket, what were your thoughts on IPL getting postponed? Like the CSK personally was doing well. The team was on fire. They were doing well. And so what were your thoughts? And I read one of your articles where you mentioned that, it feels like Will Smith in Stranger Things. Like there are two realities. One, where there is a game, the match is going on, IPL is going on, and other where there's a devastating pandemic. So there's a split side to that as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
It was very, so to be very honest, it is disappointing that it had to be called off, and not just because CSK was doing very well or the IPL was going really well. There were a lot of good matches, and there were great performances, especially by the not so usual suspects. So that way, it was a great addition. They had some amazing matches, and it was timely as well, because this was the first time a tournament of this stature was happening, especially in the scenario that we're going through. I was saddened by the whole thing only because for a lot of people, and the smaller people, let's say like a ground staff, people who take care of pitches and the groundsmen, bus drivers, technicians, camera persons. For them, this is like a huge opportunity to earn some money, to earn their livelihood, because you don't in a year ravaged by the pandemic, we know that there's not going to be so many opportunities for them to come and be a part of something like the IPL or any other tournament in India, at least. So from that perspective, I know I was really disappointed that this had to happen, but it had to happen. I guess I think everyone kind of, it's like one of those things where you're praying something like this shouldn't happen, but you knew something like this was going to happen. It was waiting to happen. I think that was the feeling that a lot of people were already in, and they were not saying it. People were afraid that this was something very ambitious to start off with, to pull off something like this, especially. But a lot of it was also going by the fact that a lot of people probably didn't anticipate the kind of the kind of a second wave that a lot of people didn't probably anticipate it to be as catastrophic as it turned out to be. But I guess there was that nagging fear that something may just go wrong. So it was, in some sense, I think people though were hoping that things could quiet down, but I guess somewhere I think everyone knew that this was going to happen, and I think BCCI was kind of. I mean, I'm sure they didn't think that they would have to do it, but I guess it had to be done. I think it was one of those things that had to happen, and it's sad that it did. And I know it's difficult. It is going to be a challenge to get this second half on the road again.
Exactly.
But I think this was a huge learning. I think I see this as a learning because we can't take something like a pandemic too lightly. We can't take the moment that we have, and this is not just about cricket. This is about, I think that's been my biggest learning over the last couple of years. I've realized that it has brought down the most powerful. It has humbled the most powerful people all over the world, and it's not something that's to be taken too lightly or too casually. And I think it's a wake-up call for a lot of us, also as professionals, not just as people, as professionals, to see what can we do to reinvent ourselves, to see what can be done because everything is now on ground zero, right? I mean, we are going to work up our way up from this position emotionally, physically, mentally, in every which way. And that's what the pandemic has done. It's kind of given all of us a chance to rethink how we are going to look at not just our careers or our professions, but look at life, look at relationships, look at things that are also as important, and not just what we end up doing for a living, but things that are far more important, lives and things that we maintain that we don't really think are as important, and it just keeps happening around us because we are so used to it. And losing people that or watching your close friends struggle, I think those things are a huge wake-up call for all of us. I think all of us have been in that position over the last few months, if not the last 1.5 years. So I guess that's something that I think a lot of people have learned from, and it's only going to get better, because once we know that we cannot bulldoze something like this, and we need to kind of work our way with keeping this in mind and work our way around it. Yes, solutions are always going to be possible.
Yes, exactly.
I was personally touched with your article. Like, even I had this thought in mind that why IPL had to postpone, why they suspended that. But yeah, if you look at it in the human aspect, that players are also mentally exhausted. They're playing constantly cricket, and then there's bio bubble. and they have families
Yeah.
to look. In fact, the other foreign players, they were anticipating already, like Adam Zampa and all that players, they were already having that anxiety that they might not be able to
Mm.
go to their respective countries. So in a way, yeah, it was a need of the hour. That is what I thought as well. It was need of the hour that they had to suspend it, and I thought it was a right call to do that from BCCI.
Actually, it's a good point you make, Rohan. I think the larger issue also for a lot of these cricketers and for all these players, not just cricketers, and cricketers obviously, because I think that's the one sport that's being played a lot apart from football, I'd reckon,
Yes.
and played along longer periods of time. It's not just a weekend or it's not just a week. It's a longer period of time. A series involves many matches with break days, with travel days, or obviously now not so much.
Mhm.
But being in a bio bubble, doing that quarantine and not seeing people, not seeing your loved ones, or just like being in that particular atmosphere constantly, and you just get 2 days, then in between, just go and see your family, then come back to another bio bubble. It is mentally exhausting. It is mentally draining. And we don't realize that. I guess being a partner in an atmosphere and just seeing the same people over and over again over months and weeks is not easy. It's just not easy. And then to just like perform at your best takes a lot out of you. So I guess that's another very, very difficult aspect as well that's happened with the cricketers, with all sports persons over the last few years. I think that's something that's should be seriously also addressed by not just cricketers or other sports persons, but by the organizations as well. I think that's something that should be seriously looked into as well. Mental makeup of all these sports persons and every professional in any industry, not just sports, I would say any industry. I think that becomes very, very critical now, and we're seeing it more. We're kind of realizing it.
Yeah.
It was an unprecedented situation, right? Like for them as well. And even Virat Kohli slightly hinted that, scheduling can be looked into in future so that, they don't feel the exhaustion in general.
Yes. Even you were also the part of IPL. You were covering IPL last year and you were in bio bubble, right?
Yeah.
I saw one of your interviews. But were you covering this year's IPL as well?
So this year I was actually at the bio bubble. I kind of came, left it after some weeks. I think I was there initially during the camp, and then I came because there was some personal stuff that I had to tend to. And of course, I was going to join back actually in Delhi. And at least I was contemplating joining back in Delhi. They were telling me to join back, and then of course all that happened. So I guess it was just one of those things that was meant to happen.
Okay.
So one personal question, ma'am. Your Instagram bio says that love the underdog stories. So is it just related to cricket, or does that have a background story? What it is exactly?
No, it's just I think I've always supported the underdog no matter what. It's not about just cricket. I think in any sport or in life in general, I think I always will support the person who's not expected to win, or the person who's not the favorite. I always support the underdog. I always support the contender rather than the one who's already on the throne. So I guess it's just that's how I am. That's how I've always been. I remember when Ferrari used to was so dominant, for example, I would always support McLaren. I would always support Kimi Räikkönen or Mika, and that's how it went. I guess even in tennis, I would always support Agassi and not Sampras, Monica Seles and not Steffi Graf. Whether it was cricket also, I guess it all comes from seeing the triumph of someone who's not expected to win. I think that's a bigger triumph always. So yeah, it's just that. It's just that.
So talking about underdogs, we have World Test Championship in coming month. So who do you think is underdogs there?
No, you can't call two finalists like this is not a story of the underdog. I think both
but you have to choose one. Yeah.
No, both are really good teams.
Okay.
And it's a neutral venue. If it was in a situation like this, you would always go with a home team for sure. But sorry, one thing. I think I got a call in between. So I just got that off. So I guess it's in a situation like this, there is no underdog. But I guess New Zealand would have the slight advantage in the situation.
Correct.
Having said that, though, I guess it's going to be a great contest. both the teams have a few are coming in with some advantage or disadvantage.
Mm.
And I guess it'll be nice. It'll be an interesting
Exciting.
match to watch. I'm sure it'll be a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Because as a sports broadcaster, you love to have lot of matches because in terms of revenue also. But as we have only one test, what are your thoughts? Like it should have been a 3 test match series for DW
Three
World
test
Test
matches
Championship.
a lot, especially in the time of pandemic. We don't have time for tests and then break between the tests because you need a break. You need at least 3 days,
Yeah, yeah.
which is involving a month. There is no window for one second half of an IPL if you make
Mm.
this many tests. No, it's not. It's not possible. I mean, of course, ideally you would look at a best of 3, but since it's a neutral venue, you're pretty much negating all the different factors that could be a factor to
Mhm.
tilt the balance in any of their side. So I guess that way is it's 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 a good contest. They
Mhm.
kind of negated a lot of the factors. So one match should be a good enough contest.
And best of 3 takes away that wow factor of the finals, right? The pressure is different of just one match. So I think, yeah, in a way, it's a good thing to
But
have
India
this
have a
one.
bad record just playing
Mm,
first
first
match.
Yeah, but this is a final. I guess I think a lot of it a lot of it to do with it's a final. It's not just a
Mhm.
one match thing. It's not a bilateral series where the first match you're
Correct.
not going to be doing. You're traveling
Correct.
somewhere and the first match ends up being like a warm up thing. No, this is a final, so I think everyone's kind of treating it that way. So I don't think you can see India as at an advantage at a disadvantage in that sense. But
Mhm.
but yeah, England is not a condition that they are very, very comfortable with. So it's
Yes.
going to be interesting. Definitely interesting to see.
I'm saying that I saw yesterday Star Sports uploaded the trailer, not the trailer, but teaser of the World Test Championship finals. So
Mm.
already looking forward to it. And CricBuzz has also started to upload all the interviews of the players. So they're already starting to hype it up a bit. So it's going to be a great contest in the future.
No, and also because I think everyone wanted something like this, like a Test championship, to
Yeah, yeah.
celebrate Test cricket.
Yeah.
And there have been so many instances over the last few years where Test cricket has really given some amazing matches, which obviously it's been more result driven, it's been more competitive. So I guess it is a celebration of Test cricket, the format, which has been the oldest format in the sport. So I guess that's another reason for a lot of us to be excited as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. From sports broadcast point of view, also it's like hyping things, and they have something to hype about. Like yeah, if you see Cricket Australia, they put videos on their YouTube channel, and then they have fans telling in the comment section, why don't BCCI also do this? So what are your thoughts? Why haven't BCCI yet
I'm
came
not
on
going to
social?
get into why BCCI is not doing it and Cricket Australia is doing it. I'm not going to get into all that. I
What
guess
are your thoughts? Just do you think they should have also done something like this?
I'm sure they wanted to, and I'm sure there's a reason why they haven't. I don't know. I'm not aware of the reason. So without
Okay.
knowing the reason, I don't think I can comment on it. Maybe the reason why there's a pandemic here, it's difficult to do a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
vis-a-vis another country where things are probably a little better. So I guess maybe it could be a lot of that. So not going to comment on that because I don't know the whole story. If I did, I would. But yeah, I'm sure they also had their own reasons and their own reasons for not doing some things.
Yeah.
And ma'am, as a fan, I had this question in mind last year, and in fact, the year before that as well. And a lot of fans has this question, and I guess you're the right person to ask this question to.
Hmm.
So, I'm sure you must have watched the Test series of Australia and on Amazon Prime. And in the recently concluded series, India Australia series, Border Gavaskar Trophy, the series was quite entertaining in terms of engagement and everything. So, do you think that in future we can also make a series on some, I don't know how to frame this, but will
Especially after heroics of Border
yeah,
Gavaskar Trophy.
like, do you think that is it a possibility in future that a
Oh,
TV
what
series on it?
possibility? What do you want? You want a team to feature the Indian cricket team like
Yeah.
very
series.
difficult. Very difficult. Two-word answer. Very difficult.
Very
Next. Yes.
I mean, yeah, even I thought,
I guess that's the case with a lot of things in India. Yeah, it's difficult to do a lot of things here.
Mhm.
I mean, it'll be great if it's possible,
Mhm.
but it's not so easy. It's not so easy.
Mhm.
And I guess let's also not forget the reason why a docu series like The Test worked is because the Australian team was themselves going through a
Mhm.
bit of a transition, and they wanted something like this. They wanted a PR story to come out, and they thought this was going to be good. So that's the reason. I mean, it was from the lens of a very, very nice kind of a revival story for them also.
Mhm.
So I guess they
Correct.
wanted it. It's not about the people making the docu series wanting it and then telling Australia and kind of convincing them to do it or whatever. I think that the Australian team themselves wanted something like that to be shot on
Correct.
them
Correct. Mhm.
because it was going through a lot of things. Sandpaper Gate had happened. People whom you're looking up to are not really, were going through a bit of a tough period. So I guess in something like that, you want something positive to be reflected and the faith to kind of come back again with that particular side, with that national team and with those players again. So I guess that was the purpose of the docu series, which it served.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I personally thought that it would be a little more like already players are on Instagram and all these social media, and there are too many eyeballs on the players. So making a series would be a little concerning for them personally, and it won't be overall good. So even I thought, but I just had this question as a fan in mind that would it be a possibility in future that maybe they can manage? But yeah, you answered the question, right?
Your guess is as good as mine. It's not going to be easy to give an
Yeah.
answer to that, but yeah.
Yeah, as Rohan mentioned that there are a lot of eyeballs on cricketers right now as they are on social media too. But when let's say they don't perform for 2-3 matches, then there is lot of criticism going on because
Hmm.
they are not playing well, because they are not concentrating enough into the game, and they are doing all these extra curricular you can say activities
Hmm.
out of the field. So what are your thoughts? Should they be given some space, and we should not intervene into their privacy?
No, I mean, I think we've gone beyond the stage of players being criticized for not performing because I think that those were the
Because
earlier.
recently happened something with Virat Kohli as well, and then now as Warner is also on TikTok, and
Look, everybody have a right to their personal space. I think
right,
that's what I would say.
Correct.
We all know that they want to perform much more than we want them to perform. So I guess
Hmm.
that's but obvious. No one wants to fail. Everyone goes onto the field thinking that they should do well. So
Hmm.
I'm sure that's on their minds. But outside of it, everyone has a right to do anything that
exactly,
gives them maybe some sort of an enjoyment or b money.
yeah,
Everyone wants
exactly,
to earn a living, and that's what we all do. That's what we all do in our own capacity. So I guess it's not fair to point fingers. I think everyone has a right to do whatever they can on their private space as long as they know that it's not interfering or overlapping uh, with their work as a professional, which they are aware of. So I'm of that belief. Sure.
And these days, in fact, audience also enjoys interacting. Like when
Yeah.
a player does an Instagram live or
hmm,
anything, that they get a lot more
yeah,
insight, then they feel connection is good with the player as well. So
Yes.
correct,
ma'am, do you think that the shift is happening? Like earlier broadcasting was only done in television, but now there is a lot more Instagram activities that are happening off the field as well. So do you think the transition is happening?
Absolutely. I think that's what I was kind of hinting to as well. I mean, referring to as well when we were talking about how the pandemic has kind of changed a lot of things. But it's obviously the change moving from television to digital is something that's happened over the last few years. But more so now over the last 2 years, I mean, with the work from home culture kind of becoming the norm, I think everything is about whatever you can get done in the space that you're at, and everything is technology driven. Everything is driven on the digital space more than television. I
Hmm.
guess one of the biggest challenges that television faces is from the digital media. I think
Hmm.
whether it's news, whether it's entertainment, whether it's sports, whether it's uh, anything, everything is now so driven by digital space that I guess that is the most challenging format right now, and everybody wants to get onto that
Hmm.
to build their platform or build their portfolio in any which way. So I guess I think that's definitely the future, and more so now because of what's happening around us.
Correct. Yeah.
Probably that was the reason or the idea behind starting your own channel, Rally with Rupa Ramani.
Hey, that's because really, I think the important thing that people don't realize is there's this that much that uh how many stories will you see on a television channel? How many,
Correct.
for example, now news channels, there is no space for sports at all now. That's done.
Yeah.
Newspapers also, there's very little room for sports. There's very little over there.
Yeah.
Correct.
Then you have your sports channels, which goes on a live to live basis. There's very little non-live that everyone invests in because obviously there isn't money there, which is obvious. You will look at what gives you, your returns. So every company works like that. So when some stories are not being able to see the light of day, I guess it's important for others to kind of step in and show that story if you can. You need to, the most important thing, I think that's the most important thing that I feel that I have learned over the last so many years that I have been in this field is the reason why people want to listen to you or watch you is if you have an interesting story to tell. If you have an interesting story to tell, people will listen to you.
Exactly.
So it's about telling a good story. If you are telling a good story, which is not being seen anywhere else, tell it. Find a way to tell that story. So I guess it's just that.
Correct.
It's not nothing else. It's not about, oh, this digital space, let's do it. It's not that. It's just that a lot of times, a lot of things or stories or interviews or discussions don't happen
Don't come out.
or don't have that space to run anywhere else. So it's always good to find a space for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stories that you shared of
Exactly.
Tamil Nadu team, they recently won the Shahid Mushtaq Ali Trophy. So yeah, in a way, I also got knowledge from those watching those interviews of yours. And especially one interview that I loved the most was with DK. It was really fun, and you could see that there was a camaraderie between you two. Like, so it was very fun interview to watch. So a word on him, a word on DK.
I've known him again for so long, like too many years I've known him for. So I guess that comes from that as well, a bit about, the comfort factor. I've worked with him. I have traveled with him. So for in one of the teams, I think where I was producing content. So, so these kind of people, you just know them so well, you know exactly how to get the best out of such people. Not just DK, because DK is, again, the language is also very, very a factor that kind of connects us instantly. But we've known each other for a very long time. So I guess that makes it easy. And that's why I keep saying that, the point about being in a profession is not just, doing a good interview or, doing your work. It's how you make relationships and how you keep them.
Players, yeah.
I think making relationships and maintaining those relationships becomes very, very crucial.
Correct, absolutely. And recently, he started his commentary stint in Sky Cricket podcast.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it the most. Like that was the fun side of DK that I saw for the first time.
He's an incredibly funny guy. He's incredibly funny. He's very, very amazing to have a conversation with. He's very curious. He always wants to find out how things are and how things work, or why is this happening and why is that not happening. He's that kind of he's constantly thinking. He's constantly, keeps wondering how things work. So I guess that kind of a brain that constantly works. I think he's that kind of a guy. So he's always fun to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So as over the years you have worked on lot of roles, I would say. We don't even know what are those roles. We got to know today only. But is there any one role which you would like to work in the future?
Which I have not done.
Yeah, obviously.
I would love to direct a match. I think that's the dream. That's the dream, I guess. It'll be difficult because a lot of people have been doing it for decades. I mean, the person who I've learned a lot from is actually a director who's, I think, 50 plus 60. I learned a lot from him. He's amazing. He's great at what he does. And there are, of course, younger directors too. I've known a lot of younger directors as well who are so good at their job. So that's something that I would love to do. But let's see.
It was really fun to have conversation with you, ma'am. In fact, I learned so much things. I didn't really know so many, like there are so many other roles as well. So it was really good to have you on the show, and
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed the most. And Sumit,
Thank
do
you
you
so
have
much.
anything? Sumit, do you have
I
anything?
just out of curiosity, I just have one question. As we want to consume cricket nowadays, we usually read some articles or then there are social media. But what is your source of consumption for cricket?
Oh God. Right now there isn't much, but I guess we end up seeing a lot of highlights, I guess, a lot of highlights and stuff we keep seeing. I know one thing that we do here at home is we like seeing all these packages that is uploaded on Hotstar or Sony Live of a lot of the matches that have happened. So we end up seeing
Okay.
that quite a bit. But I don't have a collection of match DVDs or anything or match. I don't have that. It's not something that I have, but it's not something that I have ever collected. Though I have I used to collect for tennis, not for cricket as much. But cricket, yeah, it's just catching a highlights one of those days, or any particular match that I'd really liked maybe to watch. See if there's a highlights package somewhere, certain moments, or maybe a knock or a spell that was really something that I'd want to see again. YouTube, go have a look at it. Things like that.
Correct,
Yeah, yeah. It was great to hear all these stories from you, ma'am.
No, it was great having this conversation with both of you. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.